Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Yamanote in Tech and Society. I'm your host Chris, and I'm going to be having a lot of things to talk about today. I've been taking the time to put together a series of topics that I can kind of go ahead and speak about. If you're not necessarily familiar with the podcast, the podcast is pretty much a entrepreneurship and training podcast where I try to speak about my thoughts and goals about building a brand online and sharing your ideas and thoughts with the world while still living a life, having a regular job, and without spending too much time even trying to make everything so perfect. It's a work in progress, but I enjoy it. Was able to go ahead and build this what do you call it again, this podcast right now with the information using like Anchor FM. It's one of the best ways I'm able to quickly create a podcast and share it with the world. Also, utilizing social media such as what do you call it, and Twitter and Instagram. I haven't necessarily decided to make a Facebook page yet, but I'm actually am thinking about slowly putting those things together. I found well, I didn't find, well, I was able to get my hands on a a tip on how to create 64 pieces of content every day, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. I also wanted to talk about the people who celebrate Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving! I'm doing this podcast pretty much around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm trying to get people who are going to be going away or having Thanksgiving at home, wishing you guys all happy Thanksgiving, and be safe out there for Black Friday. I don't like going out on that day, but I'll be surfing the web looking for any type of deals for the upcoming holiday season. And yeah, oh yeah, and next week, Sunday, there's gonna be the JLPT. So that's the Japanese language proficiency exam. For anybody who's taking that exam, good luck. I'll be taking it as well. It's just basically an exam that you can take if you're trying to measure your proficiency. I've taken it a few times. I'm right now. I'm trying to take the N1, but I'm I still am trying to focus more on the listening. So I've been regularly working on that. I could talk about that maybe in another section, but I want to talk about that later. Let me see another thing. Oh, I actually discovered something cool about Docs, Google Docs, and how you can utilize Google Docs to transcribe your audio podcasts, for example. I'm not sure how well it works when it comes down to uh, listening to podcasts and having it transcribe automatically, but it's made by Google and I discovered it earlier. I want to talk about that. And yeah, we have a lot of things going on. I also wanted to maybe make a news section to talk about some of the things that I've seen that's going on in the news. And then also the ideas on what's going to happen for the next week's show. There's a possibility we might be getting a guest and talking about, just ideas, building your brand, and other people that finally wants to, be on the show. So, all right, I'll just take a break right now. And when I come back, I will talk with you more. All right, so back, and just after that little quick break, so wanted to go ahead and just talk a little bit about, if you get in the newsletter, I was, basically spending some time practicing my writing. Being able to, be a, content creator, you have to be able to write effectively. And I not only plan to write it effectively in English, I also want to write effectively in Japanese and Chinese, and hopefully it can able to to process a lot of this kind of content to many different people that may need to hear it. So if you want to be a part of that that newsletter, you always have to just ask for newsletter request, in the subject line, and then email me with your email address that you would like your newsletter to be added to, and if any social media links that you want me to link you up with, and email me at ksamuel.chris@gmail.com. I'm using that one official one right now because it's Gmail and it's also linked with the newsletter. And I just feel that using Google Docs is going to be a great way to keep track of information and perhaps turn all the content I'm creating into a blog, which later becomes a book, which can later become more video content, and on and on and on. So yeah. So basically, I think I want to just talk a little bit about the newsletter, for right now. And basically, the newsletter, I kind of talked about, my ideas of, building a brand and why that's so important, because we have to connect with other people who may or may not know exactly why they should follow you, why they should listen to you. And I wanted I in this newsletter I addressed, I worked a lot, growing up, and even when I finished school, I still didn't see a big change in the issues I had, and it mainly was because I was doing a lot of the stuff on my own, and being able to delegate that not what means how I can basically say it. Delegating the things I need to get done into smaller pieces is going to be ideal when it comes down to building my brand. And when I say about this is that I can create the content, for instance, and then I can delegate the podcast being broadcast and shared with an app called Anchor.fm. I can go ahead and I can find a way to get or everything I'm basically saying to be transcribed automatically, utilizing Google how would I basically say it? Google Docs uses like a very forced way. I could pay a paid service called rev.com if I need to. The key is that I want to go ahead and find a way to share this information with people who might need to hear it. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world, and we can't wait for the news media to get in touch with this, and using the email is another way of sharing information, and then using, Gmail and whatnot to kind of share that information with you as well. And I also can share, interesting YouTube links that are outside of your algorithm the algorithm that's it's being used by Google to recommend then certain videos to you. If you want to find a way to find out more about that, you can read the newsletter. And with that, I can go ahead and move into another segment where we're going to talk about my YouTube video recommendations. The first one, there's 3 for this week, and the first one is Learn Fast by Going Slower. I was totally excited by this, and it's the podcast is actually based on Jim Quick. He's basically a consulting about learning. He helps people learn and finding new ways to expand your mind and read more and get more things done. And I've been following him a lot from a lot of other podcasts, but he had a guest on named Tim Larkin who helps people become better at defending themselves by going slower with his methods. And he talks about, I can leave the link inside the description so that way you can kind of get in touch with it yourself if you want to. And he just talks about it, like how going slower, your mind doesn't understand speed, and that going slower helps your mind to connect it properly. And then over time, you move faster and faster. And this is like, wow, like we don't do this at all in society when it comes down to, learning anything. I mean, like everything is always about time tests, no pencils and papers on the table, when you take a test. And there's something about the this that I can just talk about, but I will give you the opportunity just to look at that and see if you want to find out more about it. The second YouTube channel, YouTube link or YouTube video is the best way to transcribe audio podcasts to text. And the guy that did it, I don't have his name right now. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. Right, the best way to transcribe um, audio podcasts, and that's where I tested what he said, and then was able to go ahead and find out more about it. And yeah, it's the guy's name is Shannon Hernandez, and I'll leave her link in the description below. And basically, the blurb that's on his description is that for someone who doesn't like to type or is very slow typist, there is a solution to creating content for your website in no time. In today's video, he's going to be talking about using transcription services with your audio. I'm going to be utilize this video as a twofer for bloggers and podcasters. Podcasters may have heard that they need to transcribe their audio programs into text so that it makes it easier for a website to be found when someone Googles a specific keyword. There's a lot of debate about this, but if you're looking at getting discovered, just transcribing the entire audio program does make sense. So you need to find a balance as to what you're putting inside of your blog post and pair it with easy to click links or a too long didn't read version for those who won't read the entire transcription. And in order to do this, you can use like those services I was telling you, rev.com, or you can do it yourself using the what do you call it again? The Google Docs has a special service, and it's called voice to text. If you use Google Chrome to log into your Google Docs account, which your Gmail account, you will be able to see a link in the tools section when you create a new document. I might even make a small video about this and add it to the podcast archive on YouTube. And it just allows you to kind of, you can basically speak into it. Now, there's another thing that I actually tried it too. I also, because I speak Chinese and Japanese, you can actually change the voice text into other languages. Chinese and Japanese is there. I don't know why, but on my screen, I had to kind of like toggle around because it's at the very bottom. And it doesn't necessarily allow you to see the Chinese and the Japanese text so far. I don't know if that's deliberate or that was just poor, design of the website. I doubt it. I feel like it was deliberate. But that's just me. And so when you're paying attention to that, you can practice that. Now, I was always looking for better ways to practice listening when it comes down to speaking another language. And speaking Japanese can be easy or hard depending on what you do. Since I spend most of my time reading Japanese and writing Japanese, I'm stronger with reading and writing, and it always reflects on my any of my tests. And the listening reason why I feel like the listening is actually a problem was because of the fact that you have to sit down and listen to something that you don't quite care about on an exam, and then you only get one time to listen to it. And finding ways of mastering that was difficult, but I've actually learned how to utilize the web, and I listen to various YouTube channels, and then I can also take off the subtitles and just try to type the words. And so if I can go ahead, for instance, I'll listen to what someone says on a YouTube on a video, I'll repeat it into the voice chat, and then it'll try to dictate it into text, and I can read it and then see if it makes sense, and then maybe you have to change something. And that process helps my mind to strengthen my Chinese. And that's what I'm basically going to be testing for this JLPT, is to make sure that process works. It's primarily like 15 to 20 minutes a day, anywhere I'm on the train or at work or at home, just listening to things and trying to quickly, make sense out of it. So yeah, so like there's a lot of things you can definitely get out of this, and I definitely tell people that, hey, you need to actually, try out new things to try to, increase your well-being and become your better version. And yeah, so I definitely like that one. That was a little bit long. How many minutes was that? Already 10 minutes. All right. And the last YouTube recommendation is um, it's basically the name of the title is Some of You May Want to Hear This, but it's actually the what do you call it again? The Black Experience Japan uh, podcast, where the the owner of the podcast, Ronzo, just talks about how he's trying to go ahead and get people in different countries who are who's like living their lives in Asia, and getting all to get together to kind of build like an M files of like everybody doing different things and finding ways to connect them to each other. And I just find that fantastic because you know like once again, you always need help to find out where you stand. I mean, I don't know how else to really say it. Like um yeah, I could probably even talk about, like, basically he just talked about supporting the mission of the channel, and he tries to get people who are interested in sharing their story being black in Asia. It doesn't have to be, it could just be in Japan or Vietnam or China. He's all over Singapore, and Korea. And I just like I like supporting stuff like that because I don't necessarily have the time to do it all myself. And delegating that to someone else by contributing to it is a way I can do that. And I just feel like that's something I want to really, put time into. So yeah, yeah, those are my three videos. I looked at them already, and I'll leave the links in the description if you wanted to watch them. I hope that these little clips like here, you get value out of them. So that way, if you want to just find out what the top videos you should be watching to on YouTube, I could just make a description like that and just have a commentary spot like this every week about it. And this will just dump everything that's going on. So I'm gonna take another break, and when we get back, I will we'll talk more about the other pieces I was also talk about. Hey, what's going on? I just wanted to take this moment just to thank you so much for still listening to the podcast. It really helps, helps me to know that whatever I'm saying is you feel interested in. Right now this would be like the ninth episode I've made. So, and the only people who really would basically be listening to is the people who actually know me, or so people who like stumble upon it randomly online, either because you were looking me up or you were looking up something that was in the keywords. So basically, my each week I like to bring like an idea on how you can develop yourself into a better person by me like using books and videos and just experiments of my own to to become a better person. And then whether be successful or not, I will show that to you or talk about it to you here. If any deals or discounts that comes in my way, I will let people know, and I'll just move on from there. So I mean, so today I would basically say that these podcasts are being made through Anchor FM, which is a website that allows you to create a podcast on your mobile phone or on the laptop or PC, and you can do it all for free, and it posts it to Spotify as well as a lot of other small podcasting RSS feeds. And I keep track of all of my notes utilizing a notebook and Evernote. And so if you're interested in learning more about these things, please feel free to email me at ksamuel.chris@gmail.com. That's ksamuel.chris@gmail.com. And just making something in the subject line, just put the name of the podcast, Yamanote in Tech and Society, and inside the email, just like a question, if saying hi, why you like the show, why not like the show, and any questions I'll answer on the show. So thanks a lot. Take care. All right. So back now. Want to go over some of the things that's going on in the news. So if you guys are interested in movies, just finished watching that movie, Harriet. Um, I guess it was like it wasn't, it was like a, I don't know how to basically say it. It's more like um, a movie based off of the life history of Harriet Tubman. And movie was, to me, was great. And I think that the characters that played the, I forget her name. Let me go ahead and bring up the actual name of it. So here is one of the articles right now. It's AJC.com, Atlanta News Now. And basically, the article was by Jewel Wicker. And Casey Lemons just directed Harriet out in theaters. Actress Cynthia Erivo portrays Harriet Tubman, a young woman who flees slavery before joining the Underground Railroad network and becomes known as Moses for her famed efforts to free other enslaved people. The film has been met with praise and criticism for its portrayal of the Tubman's life. But Spelman's college professor, Spelman College history professor, Dr. Brandy Brimmer, whose expertise in African American history with a focus on African American women and family in the 19th century, says it's just as important to consider how the film depicts the broader experiences of enslaved women. Brimmer outlines for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about what the film got right and where they says it lacked important context. So it was kind of weird. I mean, like the reason why I wanted to bring this up was because I felt like the movie was pretty good when it comes down to making sure that you are giving a movie that is good for people that are women of color, Black people in general, people from non-Black people who haven't even lived in this country before, or even people who are of white people or non-Black people, people who don't really understand that idea or who might have some information. I think it hit it home. And anyway, considering the story, I mean, there was a pre-screening of the movie was with students at Spelman College. That what did they think about the film's overall depiction of Harriet and slavery? Well, she says that she was kind of torn. I thought at the onset of the film there was a real determined effort to help us understand who Harriet Tubman is, what she means to her community, and her personal life as a young woman. I also think about her decision to run and become a fugitive and her integration into the community of anti-slavery activists in Philadelphia. I think this film, at least in part, started a conversation about the sort of activist network that has engaged and committed to anti-slavery. Ultimately, when we are talking about running away, we're talking about destroying the system or taking aim at the system of slavery. The story goes on and on and on. It's like, what are some of the things that were troubling to you about the film? She says that we introduced a figure bigger long, who is a Black slave catcher. And it just sets up a lot of questions that we don't have context for. I think my short answer would be, did the family who enslaved Tubman hire a slave catcher? We don't really know that in the sources. If in fact they hired a slave catcher, was he Black? We don't know that. But we do know the slave catcher probably would have been white. Then we're also asked to believe that the slave owner's son, Gideon, who we really don't know a lot about in the source material, is going to shoot the Black slave catcher, who were also asked to believe that he hired Gideon, makes the investment to hire him, but then he's going to kill him to save Harriet Tubman. And I don't know about that whole last part right there, where she says that then we're asked to believe that the slave owner's son, Gideon, and they're talking about a certain section of the show. And I don't know. I'm not really going to go into it too deep, but I feel like this show is supposed to give like a message of hope and to understanding like a time when it was only before technology, took storm, and among a lot of things that you should basically pay attention to. You might want to watch other shows and read other books, but it was. I think they still wanted to make a movie, and and it's. I don't know how she's right. It's probably not as accurate, but it's possible. And even if he was white, I don't know. I mean, if I feel like it would be okay to kind of make the person black. I mean, I don't think those things would have played any different. I mean, I think the idea of him being black kind of brought like how that there are people who are black that could probably can focus on hurting people or whatever the case may be, or I don't know. I don't want to really go too much into it. I'm just trying. I feel like the story hit home. Many of the young people who are born today probably grew up with a cell phone in their hand, and they probably not in the hand, but they grew up with technology around them. So if they go see the movie, they're gonna be looking at the movie from a different angle. And I think that we want to make sure that, people can see that, there might be some version of this that are significantly similar to, their future, and how should they go about doing these things. And, the fact that the slave catcher wasn't white and he was black could mean that, that you don't always have to think that the catchers have to be a certain color, that the color doesn't mean anything, that your enemy could be anybody that you that seems to be a problem with you. The catcher could be, a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a teacher. So I think that really allows a lot of information to be placed into it. And the fact that she was going based on what was going on in her head, it's great to see that. I don't know, it can go on. Maybe I have to have a whole entire separate conversation about that later on, but for right now, that is where I'm actually going on with it. I do think the movie is great. I've even seen some people who weren't black and the movie did, and they also were pretty happy. They were pretty excited and clapping at the end of the movie. It's great to see that we can, we could talk and create content amongst each other and not have to feel some type of way, because we need to be able to move through life. So if you want to find out more about this article, I'll leave comments inside the description of this podcast. And I'm gonna take another break, and I think that I'm probably gonna bring up a few more things, and then after that, I think that'll be the end of the podcast. And yeah, stay tuned.
There's not much time. You got to be miles away from here, Bodon. Where is she? Follow that North Star. If there are no stars, just follow the river. Listen for them. Fear is your enemy. Whoa, easy now.
I'm gonna be free or die.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet, tell me. You are welcome here anytime. If I'm free, my family should be too. I made up my mind, I'm going back. You're confident, composed. When trouble comes, you'll be ready.
Papers. Says here you're 5.5 feet tall. You ain't more than 5 feet.
Must have won my highballs that day.
Why you back here? It ain't safe.
I come to get you. Bring all of you to freedom.
Do you know what would happen if you got caught? You got lucky, Harriet.
I made it this far on my own, so don't you tell me what I can't do.
All right, so I hope that this so far that the podcast is working for you, and you're basically able to capture like an idea on what this is supposed to actually be. I The reason why I think a podcast is necessary for not just me but everyone is give people an opportunity to one to understand what you like and what you enjoy. It also gives people a voice to share their ideas. And then you don't have to share this with, like, you don't wait for an algorithm to kind of pass this to other people. You can pass this to other people who you know personally. And I think it's going to be a great way to share information and to enjoy, what's coming, in the future. The internet is vast and infinite, and there's so many things that you can do on it. And I just feel like I'm happy to be a part of it right now. And I just want to be able to kind of pass that information around to other people. So this is what I'm doing. So, with that, I'll move on to the next part, which is basically the topics I'm reading about now. I'm still I finished the reading of the A Random Walk in Wall Street by Burton Malkiel. He just talks about the investment plans, and he talks about, let me speak a little bit slower. He talks about the investment planning of the modern individual. And he says that no one can beat the stock market and that everybody should try to invest. And if you do invest, you should look in diversifying your portfolio, which meaning by putting your investments in all different types of things, from real estate to stocks to bonds to index funds. And then he talks about how to avoid different things. He also says that if you are able to stomach certain different types of what do we call it again? If you can deal with certain levels of stress, high risks, you should do certain things. And I listened to the audiobook, and I went and rented the book from the Brooklyn Public Library and read it again with the listening to it. And I went over some of the cuts I wanted to listen to. I find reading the book while listening to the words helps me to stay focused on what words I should be paying attention to. And I might bring it up later on. I know another talk, but that's basically it. The other book I'm also talking about, I just finished reading The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and that was a great book. He kind of goes over how we're living in an infinite game where people who have an infinite mindset thinks about that there's no such thing as winning life. There's no such thing as winning, beating your beating your opponents. You're constantly doing that, and we need to pay attention to more than just profits. And then he goes into the ideas of examples of Apple and Disney and Enron. He talks about the failures of Groupon, and he goes over different things. And he really, if you read his other book before, Leaders Eats Last, and then before that, starting with Why, where he talks about finding your why in order to actually be an entrepreneur. And my why would basically be is that I feel that in order to really help people, help myself, I need to help others. I need to get other people to believe in themselves and believe that they can do something that I want to try to get people to believe things that they believe they can't do. And then once you get people to believe that, then you can start reaping the benefits of working together, building wealth and whatnot. So, yeah. So, and then the other book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm still going through that book. I think I'm pretty much halfway through it right now. I try to take the time to read it again with the book, and it's great. I mean, like, so far, I'm at the point where they talk about begin with the end in mind, where they talk about you have to begin with the idea of where you want to end up, and then you work backwards. I remember hearing that. Reminds me of what Steve Jobs said, that you start with what you want, what people want, and then you work back to put everything back together. When you try to focus on putting things together and you don't know what you want, then it keeps changing, and then you never have a trajectory that you can actually hit. And it's just amazing stuff. I mean, if you listen to science and physics, that's basically where it is. Like, in order to know where you want to go, then you can start focusing on how fast you want to get there. What type of how much money is going to cost to get there, other ways to get there cheaper. How. Oops, sorry. So yeah, I definitely love those type of talks, and I will definitely talk more about them later on. Books. The next book that I'm currently going to be reading, I just picked it up from Kindle. And try to bring it up real quick. Dead air here on the audio. Sorry about that. I'm just loading up the Kindle app on my phone, and oh yeah. So it's the How to Win Friends and Influence People. I like this book because one, it's another book that I need to be reading right after I finish the 7 Habits, but it's a really cheap book. You can find the Dale Carnegie has the book on well, not Dale Carnegie, but the book can be found on Amazon for like $3. You can just put it to your phone if you don't have the if you don't have some other ways of getting into it. I'm not gonna tell you why, but that's one way. And if you want to listen to the audiobook is also available on YouTube, and I'll put that on in my description link as well. What I want to basically also say was that there is one book that I think that everybody should be reading, and I'm currently listening to the audiobook right now, is The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is a Asian American who is currently running for the President of the United States. He is a Democratic not nominee. He's a Democratic presidential candidate, and he's already had, I think, 3 Democratic debates. And there's one coming up in December. This one just finished in November. And his idea is that everybody should basically get $1,000 a month. They call this the freedom dividend. And I think it's just great to kind of talk about these things, because what he says is that, in the next 10, 20 years, a lot of those jobs that people have are going to be, phased out. And then once they're all phased out, then the people who are working them aren't capable of like reinventing themselves. So reinventing of yourself is going to be really important. So he talks about things with data. He believes in math. I'm a still big fan of like many other candidates, but we do know that we have to. I just like dealing with facts and content and being able to read information that has been given to people, and we can believe in it, and we can try to use factual data to solve the problems. And he's all about that. And whether or not he's going to beat Bernie Sanders or whatever the case may be, I think he's not against him. He did say during an interview at the Washington Post, I believe, that if he does not become the nominee, and he will not run on another ticket. So, so he's totally okay with that. But he feels like it's important that he gets his voice heard, and it's really important. He's bringing, real hard facts to the table. Like, it wasn't coming at all before he said anything, and I definitely promote that. So with that, yeah, those are my those books right there. It's the holidays. I'm thinking about maybe each week, coming up, I'm gonna start, maybe giving out some free stuff. Thinking about maybe some Echo Dots, Amazon Echo Dots, maybe some gift cards. We'll see what's going on. Send me some emails. Tell me what you guys are looking for, and I'll try to see if I can hand it out to people. ksamuel.chris@gmail.com. Website will probably be coming up soon. I'm going to be basically setting up a website that's going to allow all the information to be set up there, and I'll have a video website, a video process that talks about how I did all of that. So if anybody wants to replicate that stuff, they could just replicate that stuff. Yeah. So I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it if you got to this part of the video, of the podcast. Like me on Twitter, Yamanote in Tech, or you can follow me at Chris K Samuel at Twitter, the Yamanote Sen, all one word, on Instagram. Don't have a TikTok yet, but we'll be getting a TikTok. If you play any games, you're interested in Magic, you can follow me at Aurora Ixion. That's AURORAIXION. And thank you. So thanks a lot, though, and talk to you guys next week.
The rest to you.
Thank you, brother. Oh, Nani? Oi, oi. I didn't think you'd actually jump in after me, brother. I must say, I'm touched. I've got to admit, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. I know that better than anyone. But with EGAT's latest invention, I knew I could finally execute my plan. You were always the fastest and bravest, brother. But you weren't the smartest, and the smartest always win. Now it's time for a new era. An era of Luigi. It's Luigi time!